This in mind, we want that coaches like to play small-sided games, medium-sided games at the beginning of preseason and don't get into that large spaces where high-speed running and sprint distance takes place. We try to give them at least that stimulus also at the end of the off-season program so that they're prepared for the beginning of the preseason, like what Sven already mentioned.
In a squad and show to our listeners that in a squad you have 23, 24, 25, I don't know the number, it depends on the team, but you have a group of players that they have a different background, training background behind, you can find I was commenting last week with some players that actually I'm consultant of. They are playing near 30,000 minutes, 3,000 minutes in this season, and in the same position, same age, same team. One player is playing less than 10% of these 3,000 minutes.
It's really, I think most of the people working outside of the club, they can't even imagine, what we are facing every week, the pressure, the challenge, and the intensity of really every decision sometimes, and it's about taking care of your own decision and thinking about, okay, do I harm or do I help the player? And one of our top players, he has a personal coach as well. And he fucked it up a few weeks ago. And I told him, I said, listen, if you fuck it up this week, I want you to show up here in the club. That's what I told him. And say, hey, listen, we do this, and this in that week. And be aware of that. We need him at 100%. If something goes wrong, and if I have to show up in front of the coach and tell him, hey, this guy is not able to play, you come in. You will tell him that.
Welcome to FSI Talks, where football experts from around the world share practical and updated knowledge with the FSI community.
Hello, everyone. I'm Bernardo Requena. I'm co-founder of Football Science Institute, and previously I've been strength conditioning and sport scientist in different elite soccer clubs. And actually, I'm collaborating at the same time. I'm co-founder of FSI. I'm a consultant of different elite football players. And today I have the honor to be the host of this FSA Talk. So FSA Talk is the place in which experts in the world of football come together to talk about different topics. So for me, it's an authentic honor to be here and share some time with you. So let's enjoy. Today we're going to talk about one topic that is really, really interesting for all of us, for strength conditioning, sports scientists, physiotherapists, reconditioning coaches, coaches also, that is the off-season period, this period that is coming soon for European leagues. And today we have the honor to share knowledge, to share experience with two colleagues that also are related with FSI. Is the Andreas Beck, is actually a sports scientist in Eintracht Frankfurt, and Sven Herzog is the performance director in Mainz 05. So thanks a lot and welcome.
Thanks. Thank you, Bernardo, for having us. Yeah.
So first of all, let's start to a brief introduction to your background. So Sven, if you want to start.
Yeah, my name is Sven Herzog. I joined soccer 5 years ago. I have a background in sport pedagogy, sport science, education, and psychology. And before I worked in soccer, I worked for about 10 years in ice hockey. And I was an athlete myself, and I joined triathlon from the early age on. And later on, it turned into pure running. So that's my background.
That's great. Andreas, thanks for coming. And if you can introduce us some about your background for the people listening.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, hi everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm studied sports science here in Frankfurt, where I'm located right now. Again, before after my doing my master at the University of Frankfurt, I moved to immediately into to the professional football world. This was 17 years ago. Worked 5 years for one club, SFC Nuremberg. It's a second league club right now here in Germany, and then now to or after that, I worked 8 years for the BVB, who I hoped the ex-colleagues win the Champions League final since we made it in Wembley again. So when I was there, we lost. So I hope they bring home the cup now. And then 2020, I headed back to Frankfurt in a little bit in a different role, a little bit more strategic, overviewing the sports science for the whole club. And there I am right now.
Oh, this is fantastic. So I'm very proud to be with you guys. Out of this host, people need to know that we have a special relationship between us. So this is for me like a talk between friends. So let's do it in the way and try to in this case, I'm the host, so I will try to ask you questions. Then you can share your experience. That is absolutely fantastic. So let's start. We are going to talk about the off-season period in Europe, in our European leagues. In most of them, approximately, all of us, we know that season lasts between 9 to 10 months. And in the rest of the time of the year, we have to include the preseason and the off-season period. So practically soon start the off-season period in most of our team, in your teams start soon. So my first question is, when you think in off-season period, with all of years experience in your daily life, what is your general opinion about off-season period? What do you think? What is the first impression you have?
Maybe I start. It's on one hand, it's mental recovery, and physically maybe harm reduction. In terms of detraining and stuff like that.
Yeah. So mental recovery first. Yeah. Okay. What do you think, Andreas?
Yeah, I just can agree again. So mental recovery, gain freshness again, getting excited all over to be back on the pitch again is important, but also the recovery from the constant mechanical stress because the game demands got so much higher than before. Game schedules get tighter and tighter, and players who play a lot of games and remain almost injury free throughout the whole season, they need a break. They need to recover their tissue at least.
Yeah. In this way, we will talk a lot about this, but it's true when you go and you look for what the literature says. For example, in FSI, in the master course for strength conditioning, there are some lectures about the off-season period, and Professor Franco Impellicheri review the different papers that are published. And my impression when I read some of these papers and is that there is a gap between a great gap between the real scenario that you are living now in your daily life and what is the type of aims in this type of research, So in this way, I wanted to ask you a second question. Okay, this is the general thinking. It's clear, and I agree 100%. It's the mental refreshment, first aim. But which aims, more in detail, which aims do you have in mind when you think in the off-season period? You will try to make like a list of aims to reach at the end of this period. What would be?
So I think, first of all, what Andreas said, the mental recovery is key. and it goes together, the physical recovery as well, but also to avoid a little bit the hard detraining effect. So I think, first of all, I would say VO2 is one part, and also body composition. That's maybe the second one.
Okay. I don't know, Andrea, what do you think?
Yes, I would start a little bit more in a more detailed approach. Generally, yes, minimize loss of aerobic capacity and other detraining effect for strength power. This would be great, but it just comes eventually because we don't have the same training conditions. The players won't train on the pitch. They don't have that high deceleration amounts, etc., which will cause then detraining in those specialized movements, functions, and so also the base which supports them, like the tissue quality, etc. But I agree, those things which can be controlled, like the aerobic capacity, this shouldn't decrease so much, because when we see then after the off season, the preseason, this changed also very much, at least at high level, where you have then international marketing events while taking preseason with jet lag travel and stuff like this. So you can't use that time really for preparation for the competition period.
Yeah.
So at least you have to keep a certain level, so the injury risk while the preseason is lower.
Yeah.
So there we have to find a balance between those players who play a lot or have a high load over or accumulated load over the competition phase, and those players who hadn't had that much load, who can then start earlier, start higher, do more. Depends also if there's a competition, like a tournament with national teams, like a World Cup or something like this, interrupting our planning of the off season and stuff like this. So there's a lot of things to concern when we go in detail into the off season planning when we look at the individual player.
Absolutely. In this way, I had in mind a question I wanted to share, but in this that Andreas is talking about, is that in a squad and show to our listeners that in a squad you have 23, 24, 25, I don't know the number, it depends on the team, but you have a group of players that they have a different background, training background behind. You can find I was commenting last week with some players that actually I'm consultant of. They are playing near 30,000 minutes, 3,000 minutes in this season, and in the same position, same age, same team, one player is playing less than 10% of these 3,000 minutes of competition. So in this way, when you talk with this, for example, you analyze these two players, imagine, because in your teams for sure you have similar cases, are when you think in this player, when you think now, okay, let's design the off-season period for this player, which factors do you have in mind, Andreas? We are talking about, for example, competition minutes, but which factors then, Andreas, do you have in mind to now design the off-season planning for each one?
So maybe I can start. So we do it this way, that unfortunately we don't play international league, so we don't have as many games, but nevertheless we have maybe 14 players who played the most by far, especially with the new coach, and so they will get some extra days off, and they start easier in terms of loading, and all the guys, because they finish off at a higher fitness level, So their drop is maybe higher, but their fitness level is also higher. And the guys who didn't play much, they have unfortunately a lower fitness level, so they will have fewer days off, and so they will have at least one really hard session early on in order to maintain at least their aerobic capacity.
Okay. So Andreas, in your case, is similar.
Yes, we take. If I can give an insight from last season, because this season we haven't had so much game minutes at the end. But last season, for example, we divided we split the players into groups. Those who played less than 600 minutes in the last 6 weeks, between 600, 800 and over 800 minutes in the past 6 weeks. So we have that more or less acute game load, or can calculate an acute game load, and those then we gave them players, for example, runs in order for aerobic capacity. Those who played a lot won't have that decrease because they had that stimulus while the games. So the others need that earlier on. They get more intervals in a zone 2, whatever. And those who played a lot, they can go just for some threshold runs, for example. And this goes along also with strength training. Those young players who need to develop maybe for next season start earlier with strength training, and then the runs came in. Maybe we get also some players from the outside. We don't know yet.
Yeah.
But for example, we know that in preseason, for example, Oliver Glasner, as our last head coach, had exceptionally high accelerations in his model of how he wanted to train. So when you get a young player from the outside who doesn't have the intensity, we already pass him. Please give him already programmed so he gets used to a certain amount of acceleration. So when he joins back into with us now preseason, when all the intensity is high, he's already as prepared as possible. Let's say it this way.
Yeah, in this way, age is another important factor. And another factor I wanted to ask you, that some colleagues of us think, especially if we think in colleagues that are working in injuries, with players with a background of injuries, or players that are playing, or finish the season with some injury that allows them to play, but is ameliorating the performance, like a tendinosis problem or something like this. So sometimes our colleagues and other people consider that the off-season period can be a window of time to include some work on the injuries that the player has been, or the background of injuries that the player has. What do you think about this possibility?
So I haven't worked as a rehab coach in football, so it's not my main topic, but we used it as an open window for that. But it's really depends where the players are, on whether they have a private coach. And I think it's when it's too deep, when it goes too deep, then it maybe, and he does it on his own, I perceive it as also maybe a risk, because there has to be somebody with him one-on-one all the time.
Yep.
And I think that's sometimes maybe a mismatch, because we need vacation and they need vacation. And I think as soon as you're going to meet each other for preseason, then there is a big window for that. And we give the players exercises for sure, but I don't know whether I want to call it really injury prevention if nobody's there one-on-one,
Yeah. Andreas, I don't know what you think about this topic. It's
it's same issue like Sven already mentioned. thing is what they can do outside. In the case you mentioned with the tendinitis, so like patellar tendinopathy, this could be really good a window of opportunity to give him some extra program, because when you, I don't know if we follow the Keith bar stuff, to have some stress shielding on the tendon. We're breaking up the crosslinks with high isometrics over a minimum of 30 seconds. This is something I can give a player and say, okay, get a leg extension machine, get a leg press, and do it like this. There's almost nothing that he can fuck up. I can be honest to say
absolutely,
that.
absolutely.
But in other cases, this might be different. This is my experience across of all clubs I've worked for. We bring special players with an injury history or recovering from injury history sooner to the club, and then work before the preseason period starts. We are working already with him.
Yeah, we do it in a similar way. Also with young players, usually they have a tough time adapting, especially during preseason. And so we're gonna bring them in earlier too. And usually they join the under 23 team because they start training earlier, and the training intensity is lower, and so you have a better adaptation.
Okay,
that's how we solve it. Especially also, we have 2 cases right now, and they're gonna start earlier, probably also with the under 23 team, in order to have an easier start with the pro team, because the adaptation is smoother.
Yeah,
hopefully.
Hopefully. Yeah, it's true. Okay, so we have been reviewing the aims for this off-season period. But if go a little and coming back to the scientific literature, our off-season period is 6 to 8 weeks normally. In some cases, like Andreas said, for some players it's less than 4 weeks, because maybe they play European Championships or World Cup or everything. Sometimes it's like this. But in a theoretical case, 6 to 8 weeks is more or less the normal. And this is categorized as short-term detraining effect. But like we were talking, and this is what I wanted to listen from you, because scientific literature in most of the cases is not done in elite level, in real context. So these detraining effects, in my experience, are not so high as in the literature are indicated in most of the cases. So what's your experience? What do you think in your experience, you want to share some cases or your personal feeling about the last season, for example, that are very recent? How is your experience about the detraining?
As you said, so I think when you have a really professional team and they finish off in a good fitness state, then, and if they do at least a little bit something, maybe that doesn't sound really scientific, but it's like that, then they don't drop as much. So I'm really focused on giving them at least when they have I give them a smooth, maybe a zone 2 run, 1-2, and then a few strength sessions, and then maybe in the second week they get more cardiac output stimulus, and I don't know, the literature says once a week that's enough, and so that's how we did it. And we started in a linear way, so without any mechanical stress. And as soon as the preseason is approaching, and then we modify the runs in a more mechanical manner, that they have an easier a kind of easier start on the pitch, because as Andreas already said, we have a coach like Glasner right now. When we're on the pitch, it's hard to stop him, and it's always acceleration, deceleration, and so we have to prepare the players, and that's how we organize it, to have the interval runs organized with more changes of direction as soon as the preseason is approaching.
Okay. So Andreas, what do you think about it? Because I would like to give another in the next topic, focusing composition. The composition, like Sven is giving some advance about the composition. So Andreas, in general, what do you think in respect of your experience agrees with Sven in respect of the training effects that you really experience?
Yes, definitely. But we use that also as a window of opportunity, because maybe our German training football culture is a lot also about aerobic capacity, and which in my mind is very important for regeneration between those high intensity demands between actions and games, and therefore a good indicator for robustness. So if we have, for example, those type 2 players who are very fast, who we're searching for in football, because they have those spectacular actions, but they have a limited aerobic capacity and a limited ability to recover. We use that time to give them some extra work in that area, so that he can improve there, because also it is less on regular basis, less mechanical demanding, like a run. Also depends on if you have really type 2 player, they more like intervals than steady state and stuff like this. So it's get a little bit complicated in detail, but in general we see it that way, to use that also as an opportunity. The second is that the preseason already starts with games, even if 45 minutes per player against minor league clubs.
Absolutely.
And in the region. So what we had, for example, I don't know, last year or the year before, I don't know, long ball, central defender has to sprint back, first week, torn hamstring. So this in mind, we want that coaches like to play small-sided games, medium-sided games at the beginning of preseason, and don't get into that large spaces where high-speed running and sprint distance takes place. We try to give them at least that stimulus also at the end of the off-season program, so that they're prepared for the beginning of the preseason, like what Sven already mentioned.
Absolutely, I agree. Both opinions, and we are talking about off-season period composition, and now we're going to go a little more deep. But like you said, Andreas, to plan well the off-season period, obviously we take in consideration the factors before, like we have been talking, but very important how is the preseason period? Because if your preseason in 1 week from the start, you travel and you start to play, like you said, even 45 minutes, then you are exposed to real competition, and players at the end, some of them, for them, friendly match is a competitive match, because they need to show, they need to be on shape. So absolutely agree. Okay, let's give a little more deep about a theoretical off-season period, which for example, length. Let's talk about ideal length, which is the length that actually we have more normally, and which are, if you distinguish some clear phases or not, and which are the main contents. Sven gave us some clues about it, but let's go deep about the composition of the off-season period.
You mean
About,
season is
for example,
over? Season is over, and how we move on.
How exactly? How is the planning that we give to the theoretical standard player?
So right now, it really, in our situation, it depends whether we have to play, unfortunately, another week, you know, because we're not out of the relegation battle right now. But then it will be either 5 to 6 weeks off season. I mean, where they are not playing football. But we start, especially with the substitute players, we start with their home program probably after I have to negotiate. It's between 10 to 14 days. I don't want to give them longer, especially the guys who didn't play much or didn't play at all.
Yeah.
More than 10 to 12 days without doing nothing. Then at least there has to be one stimulus, and I can buy them another, 3 days. But that's my opinion. So because otherwise the detraining effect for the players who didn't play, we have players who didn't play at all.
Yeah.
And that's and so I cannot give them 3 weeks, in a row. And so the other guys who played the most, they will have 4 to 6 days longer. And then we start more with easy zone 2 work, like less stress hormones and stuff like that. And then we will have 5, depending on our performance now at the end of the season. Depending on that, we have 5 to 6 weeks probably. Yeah.
Okay.
And then they have home training program for around about 3 weeks.
Okay.
Before they show up here again.
And in this program, Sven, I can imagine the running is made thinking that the player maybe is in holiday, so you need to adapt more or less simple context. I can imagine.
Yeah, it's really. So we have we organize it that way. So we have like Andreas already mentioned, in Germany, the players are used to heart rate guided training in the off season, and so we work with polar watches, GPS based, and so they have intervals either based on velocity or certain heart rate thresholds.
Okay.
And that's how we organize it. And for the strength program, we have a system that's called Bridge. And it's an online platform, and you can assign programs online, and it's quite easy. And that's how we organize it.
Andreas, what's your experience there?
Almost the same. So we like I mentioned, we divide the different groups, like those players who played a lot in the recent period, maybe those who had a good training attendance, doesn't do so much, but those maybe just come back from an injury and were out 2 months, then train for 1, and then the off season comes. This is always treated differently, but regularly 2 weeks off to find balance, to recompensate. Sometimes it starts earlier, but regularly 2 weeks, nothing. And then for those who have a high load, they can start with what they want.
Yeah.
So if they want to go play tennis, they can play tennis.
Go tennis.
They want to swim, they want to go for a bike run, a bike hike, it's up to them. Then we take it, just, hey, get your body moving again.
Yeah.
Those for the high load players. Now they are a little bit different. Yeah. And they can start easy, and then they get adjusted to strength, to the individual strength program, which is not really a strength program. It's just a strength maintenance program, because to the limited availability or because they don't have the structure like they have in our training ground,
Absolutely.
in the hotels, wherever they are. But and we track that's almost the same. We use Garmin. They all get their watch, and we have a system called Atleta. This is from a company here based in Frankfurt, where we have our strength program, and they have also the thresholds from the preseason screening in it. So the plan gets pushed on the watch, and the athlete just has to follow. We go more velocity based than heart rate based in those runs.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
this is almost how.
So the way we organize it, usually the zone 2 stuff, we do it more heart rate based. So the easy one, aerobic stuff, and as soon as we want to hit more like threshold stuff or higher, then it's velocity based. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this combination is easy. Well, the player is familiar with this type of control, because it's another question I have to ask you is about how you track the load during the off-season period. So you now share with us. But yeah, it's really easy to understand for players, so they can do it by themselves. And do you have because of at the end we have the combination of holidays and try to avoid the detrimental effects, of this period of time of detraining. But in my experience, my real feeling is that players, every time you see years back, players obviously with some exceptions, but most of the players are more and more professional in respect of they are real athletes in these cases, so obviously with exceptions, but in general we could say, I don't know what you think about habits of life of players. They take more and more care about themselves, and I don't know what's your experience, but my experience in this way is that the players take care of themselves more and more with in the last years. I don't know what you think about it.
Maybe I start. So I had a big switch coming from ice hockey, to the football world, and that's like living on the moon, because the players, when they have off season, they party hard, and the lifestyle is more rough, I would say. Yeah. And if you measure body composition at the beginning of preseason, you might be shocked a little bit, maybe. Maybe it changed also the last couple of years, but in soccer, maybe when they finish off with, just to throw out the number, maybe with 9%, 8.5, maybe they have 1% more, which is okay. That's maybe 1.5. That's it.
Same.
And that's my experience. And usually that's also okay, because the preseason usually is quite hard, and you need a little bit something on your ribs as well, because otherwise you don't have the robustness to deal with the training load in preseason. So that's my experience. Maybe you have 1-2 guys on the team, usually 2 guys, but it's nothing crazy. So most of the guys, they have a really, really professional lifestyle, I would say.
Yeah. Andreas, what do you think about it?
Same with us. From my experience, about now 17 years. I think, like Sven said, okay, everybody of all the listeners out there who work in football have those guy in back of his head. Hopefully he's coming back not too big, and the coach is not screaming at us and them, and this doesn't make an issue and doesn't have to run all the way around the pitch. I think this doesn't happen that often anymore. We have those players, but on the other hand, I think that we have to keep in mind that if we want to keep the level of performance high for a 10-month competition period, because the off season in winter or winter break is more transition period because it's so short. This maybe over a professional career of 10 years, this can't be possible. You have to give the body rest and so on to compensate, and maybe also to gain some weight. You have to really care about that the fluctuation is not too much. Don't drop too much, you don't go too high, and keep a certain level. But in those 6 weeks, hey, please enjoy your life, get rest, stay, keep moving, and then come back. And then we have to periodize into the season, because to prepare for 10 month period in 6 months again, in 6 weeks, I think that this isn't possible. So you don't have to throw all the volume and intensity into those 6 weeks and then think, okay, you can go for it till the end of May next year. So I think they need that break, and they can recover, and if they come back and have a little bit more weight, this is totally fine. Sure, also we have a certain amount where we say, okay, good, anthropometric, please come back in that condition. This is what you're 3 kilo wise. And if you gain too much, please get on the scale by yourself after 2 weeks, and then start to eat some vegetables more.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree 100%. At the end, I think we lose the perspective, sometimes in respect of we don't have this vision, like Andreas said, look, we are playing for 10 months, and this career sometimes is 10 years or 12, 14 years. So if you get crazy, and then you need this time to unplug. Absolutely. In this way, I wanted to ask you two more topics I would like to discuss. Is this that more and more players are training outside with personal trainers or coaches outside of the club, and this is a general situation that in Spain, in big leagues like Bundesliga, Spain, or La Liga or Premier, is very common. It's true that this type of personal coaches are more oriented to rehab coaches or physiotherapists related with, they are more confident with the player. But how do you manage this situation? For example, a player goes holidays and you give them a plan, but the player trained with other person. So do you have a conversation with them, or what's your experience, or maybe you don't want to go deep in this way with a player? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe we can. It's funny because we can share one player because one player is on a loan. And so in this way, I had a bad experience in terms of dealing with a performance coach. I had good experiences, but in general, it's getting more, I would say, and it's getting a little bit more out of control, in my opinion. So the last two years, I would say this year, I would say 3 injuries were caused by that.
Yeah.
I mean, a mismatch of communication, because we didn't know that the player did something else, with his personal coach, and we have no clue what he has done the day before, and maybe in this way also when he had 2 days off, finishing off with a hard match day plus 2 training. And then he did 2 interval runs during his off days, and we didn't know it. So, but on the other hand, I had also really good experiences. It's both. And but I think what we do right now, I ask every player beforehand, and I say, hey, listen, it's your responsibility to regulate that, because I don't know your personal coach, maybe. So either we gonna talk together, or I can. But what I do usually, I send them without going into too much detail. What are we doing? How is the week structured? in terms of loading and mechanical work. That's how I give that to the personal coach, and I tell him, hey, if you do something additionally, please let us know.
Exactly. Yeah. And Andreas, what's your experience in this situation?
Oh, okay. How much time we got? Because now
you know this guy.
I know the player you're talking about.
And it happened twice
Yeah,
within 12 weeks.
And I can tell you some stories of that where because that aerobic capacity type 2 and what the player has done. Okay, but this is something between us. Yeah. But this is why in my now 17 years of experience in professional football, it's getting more and more and more, and this topic really, really, really pisses me off.
Yeah.
I have to really say it that way, because as an external coach, if you listen to that, please keep in mind, for example, a player earns on a top level 1.2 million a year, which is not that unreal. So most of it is more like average. Yeah. So in a month he has a salary of 100,000. So if there's a minor injury of him and he's out for 2 weeks, this is 50,000, which has the club to pay without to have the play available for training or games. So this is what the club pays, and additionally the staff, the physiotherapist, the rehab specialist has to bring the player back. Yeah. If any of those injuries are related to not pre-spoken external stimulus, I expect the personal trainer to step up for this, or even the player to step up for this and say, okay, good, I'm coming back when I'm ready for training, and I don't want to charge the club anymore. This won't happen. But this is the responsibility, in my opinion, my really personal opinion, from the player, that he sets himself in the center and says, okay, if load management is the ultimate tool to prevent injuries and to keep my performance up and maybe go higher and I try to hit the roof of my performance, which are genetically given to me, and I need some extra stimulus. I have to create an atmosphere of trust and communication. And this is what doesn't regularly happen. And I had an experience with Erling Haaland, which was all the other way. He came to me and said, Andreas, you know what? I have an external coach. I want to work with him, but I want you to be fully involved. So he created a WhatsApp group, put me and the guy in. We had a talk, and I was first of all, because they did a lot of remote, I attended the first sessions. I know what he was doing. I know when he was doing, and then I could easily step in and said, okay, good, he had already that stimulus. I can manipulate for him the training in the practice in the room, or maybe have a different talk with the coach to keep him safe. Yeah, absolutely. And keep his performance up. And this is also all about communication. On the other hand, I'm totally open, but I expect that from the other personal trainer, external trainer too. I have some other experience also, where I got a phone call where the player didn't hit me, but I knew that external trainer said, Andreas, hey, I will work in an off season with that player. Can you give me clarity? Can you give me some information? Can we exchange it? And this was no problem. This was perfect. This was cool. But this is exceptional. And I hope those also those external camps.
Yeah, external
Yeah.
camps. There are more and more.
External camps. There are more and more from the
Agencies.
agency. They got promoted and they doing stuff unbelievable. Yeah, on some artificial turf, which is not fixed, change of direction. I saw Instagram videos from my players where I thought, okay, the knee is gone. And I said, this can't be true. What are they doing with those players?
Yeah.
And this is something I think which is very hazardous to football, and I hope that those external coaches will. I know what they're doing, but I hope that they get open up, try to communicate more, try to that so we get that athlete or that player in the center of everything, and try to develop him and take care for him with all our possibilities, club-wise, but external-wise. And I think then it's going to be better. And but
I agree 100%.
Sorry, I was a little bit emotional with that topic.
No, that's true. I understand you perfectly. But this is true that if you analyze in the last years, the same that we were talking, players now are more, they have more knowledge about care themselves and everything. But at the same time, the last years, there is a tendency to have more and more, and you see training camps now are more extensive, are very common, and for me, I understand you perfectly because and I have been in both sides in respect of when I was inside the club, I tried to ask the player and try to have connection with the people working with them. And now sometimes I'm out of the club and I have players that they ask me to help them with some process, especially with injuries and whatever. And the first thing we do is talk with the club, because when you are being in a club, it's like you said, I 100% agree with you, Andreas. The first step, and I hope the people listening us, they should think about it. Okay, you can be a person working with a player outside because of you have the confidence of the player. Yeah, right. But please put in contact with the people in the club. Try to work hand by hand, because at the end, all of them, they want the same, that the player success. But in the other way, there is no sense in my experience, and I agree 100%. I'm so emotional when I talk about this.
I think the problem is
Sven is more relaxed.
No. To be honest, I had conversation on Monday with one coach. I said, "Listen, buddy, we have probably maybe the most important game against Dortmund, when, in order to stay in the league, and it's going to be tough for us anyways, because, we play against one of the best teams in Europe right now. And one of our top players, he has a personal coach as well. And he fucked it up a few weeks ago. And I told him, I said, listen, if you fuck it up this week, I want you to show up here in the club. That's what I told him. And say, hey, listen, we do this, and this in that week. And be aware of that. We need him at 100%. If something goes wrong, and if I have to show up in front of the coach and tell him, hey, this guy is not able to play, you come in. You will tell him that.
Yeah.
And so I can...
Absolutely.
And the problem is we have to be open. It's a big market. I think Andreas was throwing out the numbers, what they guys make a month.
Yeah.
And the problem is that most of the coaches, they haven't had that experience sitting in our chair, being responsible. They can they have the show. They are part of the circus, and they make decent money just without taking the responsibility. And we are in charge. Yeah. And so the coach, it doesn't give a shit. If I tell him, hey, this guy is not available at the weekend because he trained with his private coach, the first question is, hey, you have to control that. That's their perception. But so it's really, I think most of the people working outside of the club, they can't even imagine, what we are facing every week, the pressure, the challenge, and the intensity of really every decision sometimes, and it's about taking care of your own decision and thinking about, okay, do I harm or do I help the player?
Yeah.
And when I do something for my ego, and maybe that's rough, but that's how I perceive it. When I do something for my ego, usually that's not good for the player.
You're thinking in social media, for example.
I have to admit, I was on the other side too.
Yeah.
So I started working with a football player from Mainz at this time when Jürgen Klopp was there.
Yeah.
As a head coach. And to be honest, I had at this time no idea about football training, about microcycle, about how the load was. And then after 6-7 years later, when I joined the BVB, Jürgen Klopp was there, and then I thought, what the hell? What did I do? So that guy survived because we did good things on the wrong day.
Yeah,
we did good, and this is the same when I see some Instagram features of our players at our club, which then show some things. They're really good things, but maybe it's not placed right, or it gets some overstimulation though, because we do the same on next day, or they did a high eccentric Nordic stuff, and we're gonna go for high sprint exposure on next. I don't know, but these are all risks which just can be solved by communication, and I think that there we have to
clear. It's clear. A next FSI talk about this topic alone. Okay, to finish about off-season period, we are in the end of this fantastic talk. Let's finish with how will be ideal state of the player. You think now in your players, your hopefully mind will not be in the last in this extra journey. So all things well. Let's imagine. Let's cross finger. How will be the optimal stage of them when you receive them in July or end of June?
Maybe it sounds strange, but smiling. That's a good indication. When they smile and they look like kids and they want to go back on the pitch because their hunger is back, then we did something right. And maybe physically, sure, we're gonna test them, and I hope that their aerobic capacity is okay, nothing crazy, but okay, and their body composition is okay too. I mean, in terms of body fat and stuff like that. But I'm not concerned at all in this way. So that's going to be my first impression, or my first thought is I want to see the players smiling and hugging each other when they're coming back and enjoying, being part of the circus again. And I think that's the most important. If the guys, I had that once where we started quite early and you could see it, the guys showed up and there wasn't that energy, and they really couldn't enjoy it, and I think that's the most important.
Andreas, I think you think similar,
Nothing to add.
Yeah, me too.
If they have fun on the pitch again, if they're prepared, if they pain-free.
Yeah, pain-free.
That's true. That's true.
And
it's very curious because we started the conversation talking about mental refreshment. The theme we said the first day, mental refreshment and plage, and then we finish, with smiling and have energy to train again. So I think this is the best conclusion of this talk. I don't know, you want something to add for me? Someone listen us. I think you have shared great experience, a lot of real knowledge that this is very difficult to find. And I don't know if you want to add something.
No, I think everything is said, and I think the most important thing is that also we as coaches, we need energy too, and we have to smile as well, because
100%.
sometimes I ask myself, what the hell am I doing every year? You know what I mean? That's, your wife looks at you and say, hey, I haven't seen you for weeks. So, I mean, that's our truth, and that's our reality. And I think we've chosen it, because we love what we do, and we love that the competition, the intensity, but we have to give the players energy as well, and in order to be capable of doing that, we need energy as well. So we have to smile as well after 5 to 6 weeks.
Absolutely.
So that's a good player commitment is important, because when you get phone calls every second night, when you're on vacation, maybe I have to throw that out, especially for maybe when younger colleagues are listening. Hey, buddy, don't make it too complicated, because otherwise you won't have an off season. Don't do it too complicated, because the players, they have to be able to do it on their own, and then
Absolutely.
keep it simple.
Simple.
Easy stuff. It's not rocket science.
Exactly. Andreas, something to add, or?
Everything said. I hope I didn't offend anybody of the listeners. Please, sorry for that. If so, otherwise, then if you have any further questions, just contact me. Then
Okay.
I will.
I want to give you thanks a lot to be here with me to share this time. So for sure we're going to have a next episode talking about personal players, coaches, and everything. But it has been a pleasure to share with you this time, and I hope see you soon. And all the best for the last part of the season. And see you soon in this summer. I hope see you soon in the summer.
Thank you very much.
We keep in touch.
Thank you. Bye.
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 FSI Talks, where football experts from around the world share practical and updated knowledge with the FSI community.